Well, I love Canada. I'm also Premier of Alberta. Canada has to start working for Alberta. We have a Prime Minister right now who says one thing in English, one thing in French, one thing in Eastern Canada, one thing in Western Canada, one thing to me, and then one thing to when he's asked by the media. I will give whoever happens to be in the chair 6 months to make good. Well, thank you. I know that Brooks is the city of what, 1,000 hellos or 100 hellos? So I don't know how many of you celebrate April Fool's Day in the country of your origin, but this is not an April Fool's Day joke. If you don't know what we're talking about, then ask your neighbor, because somebody will. But it is also my birthday today. And so thank you. Someone wished me, thank you. Someone wished me a happy 44th birthday, and I said they were a decade off. I'm actually only 34. That's an April Fool's joke.
In regards to your What's Next post-election panel that you mentioned over the weekend, what would you say to those who criticize you for sort of entertaining the idea of Alberta independence as Canada faces a trade war and threats of annexation from the U.S.?
Well, I love Canada, and I want Canada to work. I've been on Team Canada from the beginning. It's part of the reason why I've been relentlessly going to the United States and trying to advocate for all of our industries, for all of Canada in every venue I possibly can. But I'm also Premier of Alberta. And quite frankly, at some point, Canada has to start working for Alberta. And it's not right now. We have a number of policies that came in over the last 10 years that have been damaging to Alberta prosperity. It's been damaging to our freedom as a province. And if they persist, it is going to continue a dysfunctional relationship that harms Alberta. So I put forward the 9 major policies that I think have to be repealed after the next election. Unfortunately, the current Prime Minister, despite what he said to me privately when he was here, has now gone public saying he supports export taxes, he supports Bill C-69, he supports emissions caps. That is moving in the wrong direction. So we will get through this election. We'll see who ends up winning, and I will continue to advocate for those. And that's part of the reason why I will do a What's Next panel. We did that when when my predecessor came in to hear some of the concerns that Albertans had about how to repair the relationship with Canada at that time. And it'll be time for us to do it again.
If Carney wins and he becomes the Prime Minister he seems to indicate he wants to be with his recent pronouncements, which basically are not taking your demand seriously. And if, as expected, many Albertans would be very happy with a fourth term of the Liberals, particularly if they're pursuing anti-Alberta policy, can you see a scenario where if Albertans desire it, the government of Alberta, not citizen-initiated, the government of Alberta, like the equalization referendum, the government of Alberta would put a secession referendum on a ballot?
No, I can't foresee that. We do have citizen-initiated referenda, and it will be up to Albertans to decide what kinds of questions that they want to put forward. I don't think we've seen any successful citizen-initiated referenda yet, but that's the mechanism for things like that. For my part, what I'm going to do is continue to advocate for whoever happens to be the Prime Minister to make good on the 9 things that we want changed. We want to see an end to emissions caps. We want to see an end to net zero power regs, net zero vehicles, net zero building codes. We want to make sure that we control our own environment for methane emissions. We want to make sure that we don't have a ban on tanker traffic off the West Coast, that we have control over our process to approve pipelines with an end to Bill C-69 and a couple of other things. Those are things I'm advocating for, and I will continue advocating for them after the election. I will give whoever happens to be in the chair 6 months to make good on trying to address some of those critical problems for Alberta. And then at the same time, I'll be going across Alberta on what I'm calling our What's Next panel to see what kind of feedback we get. But we can't stop trying to get the right policies in place. As I mentioned, we have a Prime Minister right now who says one thing in English, one thing in French, one thing in Eastern Canada, one thing in Western Canada, one thing to me, and then one thing to when he's asked by the media. So I don't actually know what this Prime Minister is going to do. I'm not encouraged by that flip-flopping so far, but we'll see what happens after this next election. But those are bottom line things. If you want to get pipelines built, if you want to get corridors established, if you want to open up markets you have to get rid of all of the policies that are dampening investment in our country. And you can't have it both ways. So I'll continue pressing for it, and I hope there's a change of heart after the election.
Well, my supplementary is you during the Trudeau era, and even now in the very brief, and hopefully it will remain brief, Carney era, you have made many submissions and many requests of the Liberal government, and why would you rule out putting secession, not citizens, the government putting a secession referendum when that would be the attention grabber of all attention grabbers? That would be on the front page of the New York Times, the Washington Post, Fox News, BBC. It would be a global story if Alberta actually did that, as happened in Quebec very effectively. They never passed a secession referendum, but they had two of them, and boy, did that get the rest of Canada's attention. Why would you rule out a secession referendum for your government to put it on the ballot?
I got a mandate to try to fix Canada. I got a mandate to try to make Canada work. And that's what I've been working towards relentlessly over these last 2.5 years. As you know, we did put in place a process for citizen-initiated referenda, and I leave it to Albertans who may feel differently to put forward a petition campaign. But I think my job as an Albertan and as a Canadian is to try to put on the table the issues that are causing grave tension in our federation and to solve them. And I'm going to look at it on the positive side, because what I have observed is that it may be that the current prime minister doesn't get it, but all of the other premiers do. And we have consistently, for the last number of meetings, signed on to communiques talking about how we're going to build economic corridors. This last one, economic corridors with oil and gas and transmission lines, rail lines, and new highways and other infrastructure in those corridors. And so I believe there's goodwill on the part of the other premiers. The problem is, unless we solve those federal barriers, we're not, it's just words on paper. So I'm going to continue to use sort of that newfound sense of esprit de corps with my fellow premiers. We're going to do what we can after the election to make sure that we address those issues, and I'll keep an open mind. But so far, I'm dissatisfied with what I'm hearing out of the new prime minister. He doesn't seem to understand just how foundational these are if we're going to reset the relationship.
Of course, tomorrow is when we're expecting Trump to announce his tariffs. I just wanted to talk about your strategy about, speaking to American media, politicians, personalities. How do you see this as helping Team Canada approach as a whole? And do you think that this has an impact on Canada's ability to really have a united front with regards to these tariffs?
Yes. I mean, when we started off, it was agreed by all the premiers that we would work our contacts so that we would talk to every single individual elected member of office and incoming member of the administration, including influencers and podcasters, to do everything we possibly can to ward off tariffs, delay tariffs, or get them canceled altogether. And so I've just continued in that strategy, and I'm going to continue in that strategy. I would say that when my most recent trip to speak with Ben Shapiro, he is the second largest listened to podcaster in the United States. He's got an audience in all his platforms of 25 million. We had a very constructive conversation where I talked about the integration of our economies on everything from oil and gas in Alberta to critical minerals in British Columbia, Ontario, Quebec, and all of our provinces and territories, cars from Ontario, uranium from Saskatchewan. And that to me is what the Team Canada approach is. Every single province has a vital, important relationship with the U.S. that has mutual benefit. And the next day, Mr. Shapiro spent a good deal of his podcast talking about why he's so opposed to tariffs. So those are the kind of things, those are the influencers that will have influence on the decision makers around the president. And from what I'm hearing, they still haven't settled on what it's going to look like tomorrow. So I think we had to do a full court press right to the last minute. We're going to keep on doing that.
Perfect. And just to follow up on that, you kind of touched on it, but so you're anticipating on continuing with this strategy.
Yep.
despite, like, if it, of course, there's a lot of uncertainty about it tomorrow, but if it goes forward, that's still going to be your main strategy?
Sure is. Yep. I mean, I have a number of different relationships that we've built because Alberta's had an office in the United States since 2005. We've had a representative there representing our government for a number of years. We've built great relationships across party lines, both Democrat and Republican. It has served us well. We would have been prepared if there had been a different approach, or if the Americans had gone Democrat as the approach that we have going Republican. And that's what you're supposed to do. That's what diplomacy is that you're supposed to talk to both sides of the aisle because you never know what the voters are going to do. And I think that perhaps that's why our strategy has been a bit more effective. We actually knew who to call. And we had relationships with people who are decision makers. And I think it's good for Canada that we do have that and that we're able to leverage those relationships and hopefully make a difference.
Thank you.